right, in this video we're going to talk a little bit more about the back, and we'll also get into the rotator cuff. So we hit the trapezius muscles previously, the rhomboids, rhomboid minor and major. If we pull those off, so he was the most superficial, pull him off, that reveals the rhomboids. If we pull the rhomboids off as well, that will show you the erectors, the spinal erectors. A lot of times we think about doing a back extension or a good morning or something, but you also need to think about these as just opposing gravity. Gravity is trying to pull you forward and down all the time, and these are what keep the spine and your head and neck and your entire back body erect so that you can walk on 2 feet instead of 4. There's 3 different portions of the erector spinae group. There's the iliocostalis. That right there tells you its attachments from the ilium to each individual rib spanning up the spine. And it doesn't really look like these pretty parallel fibers. It looks more like a tree with little branches that trickle all the way up each individual rib. You have your longissimus, and then you have your spinalis. Remember, the spinalis is going to be the most medial, as it is the closest to the spinous processes of the vertebral column. So spinalis, spinous processes. You can then see the serratus posterior inferior. Remember, we had serratus anterior here, and that's the serratus posterior inferior. Obviously, if we felt the need to put inferior on there, that would lend you to believe that there is a serratus posterior superior. However, that exists underneath the shoulder girdle, so we'd have to pull all that off to reveal that. You can't see that on this model or any other model that I have. This is where the latissimus dorsi has been cut. Here you can see the latissimus dorsi. You see the lats little helper, teres major right here and teres minor there. Remember, teres major is not part of the rotator cuff, but it does everything that the lats do. Teres minor here, you see a sheath covering the bottom portion of the rotator cuff. That's going to be your infraspinatus muscle. Over here, where we've pulled all that off, you can really see the supraspinatus, infraspinatus, and teres minor portions of the rotator cuff. To show you further the distinction between teres minor and major, remember, minor, just like the infraspinatus, is going to attach to the posterior surface of the humerus, whereas teres major is going to attach to the anterior portion of the humerus. So think those are going to be oppositional, especially in the rotational movements. And that is pretty much all we've got for the back. The last thing I wanted to show you, there's 2 other things that I wanted to show you on this model. So if we, oh, his hyoid just came off. If we pull off, prepare for a boom. If we pull off his belly, you can see the diaphragm here. There's the diaphragm. Very important for inhalation and exhalation, right there. Now, if we look at the inside of the abdomen, we have the abdominal cavity down here, and we have the thoracic cavity up here. Here you can see the inside of the intercostals, so the internal intercostals. If you look very close, you can see that there's layering there, the internal layer, the external layer, so internal intercostals, external intercostals. You can also see these guys here. Those are the transversus thoracis muscles. So again, they're going to pull on that rib cage when you're pulling in that rib cage and expanding it. Sometimes you need muscles to help with that. This is the diaphragm where it has been cut, and then that reveals the transverse abdominals. They run straight across. Their main role is compression of the abdominal cavity. So if you envision me punching you in the stomach, you're going to brace your core. It's not the same as sucking in, which is another way to engage some of those core muscles. But here we're literally bracing. That's the transverse abdominis right there. And these are pelvic floor muscles. We didn't get into that for the scope of this class, but they're very important. Remember to do your Kegel exercises and practice those, because that's very important in engaging the pelvic floor, and that is the foundation for most of your core movements.